Hello, are you here to debate?
Yes.
Okay. What's your name, age, and pronouns, please?
Justin, 33, he, him.
Okay, Justin, what topic were you calling in to debate about?
Shoot. Let's go with trans men, women, or men and women.
Okay. I'm assuming you don't agree.
I will answer it with I simply don't understand, since like my whole life I've been told by people said like, you were born woman, you have X, you're born man, you have X.
Okay.
And I've gone my whole life. And I don't even really know if this is a debate. It's just more of like, I don't understand why it's such a big deal, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to.
Sure, I can absolutely. First and foremost, one of the biggest things I want to start doing this a bit. I can give you some information, especially related to like how gender and sex work on like a socialist on like a sociology, psychology, biology, and neurobiology level. I can't really explain to you any experiences that trans people experience. One of the best resources for that would be to calling into a show like Takis on the Line, where you'll get to speak to like doctors who are actually trans or trans advocates. They can give you a little more information on that. What I can do is just give you like a broad explanation of like gender and sex to sort of help hopefully bridge that gap for you a little bit. If you had any like specific questions for me.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really like I said, like I lack the understanding because I live in the southeast. You know, I don't see trans people, I don't know trans people, and because of upbringing, I just don't understand it because nobody talks about it.
Yeah,
really, and when they do, it's always ugly. And I don't even really feel like this is a debate. I really just want to understand because I feel like some days I feel like the Democratic Party will die on this hill and continue to like draw ire from people, and I just do not understand why it's such a big deal to people.
okay. No, I can absolutely explain that to you. So it's a big deal right now for two really big issues. One, the right-wing pundits in America are using trans people as a scapegoat. That tends to happen when you have political parties that operate on more of a shared enemy framework, which the Republican Party tends to do. So right now, the shared enemy is immigrants and trans people. Trans people are just trying to live their lives, right? They do not really care about like what other people are doing. They just want to live their lives, and they want to live their lives safely, and they want to live their lives in the most truth that they can. And so part of that truth is, you know, they want to be able to express themselves in gender in whatever way makes them the most comfortable. For some trans people, that is socially transitioning. For some trans people, that is physically transitioning. You know, it's whatever makes them the most comfortable. A lot of people have a misunderstanding about gender, and so that's where the other side of it comes through. For a lot of people, what they learned about sex and gender doesn't go past like a third grade understanding of sociology and biology. You know, we teach kids concepts very, very broadly. So we teach them like a very dumbed down version of things. So what they learned in school and growing up is man equals male, woman equals female. There's nothing else. This is, in terms of neurobiology, not even remotely close to what actually happens when we look at the brain and when we look at society and things like that. But there's a lot of people who just don't know because they didn't get that education. And then there's a lot of people that what's the other thing I'm looking for? There's a lot of people that also, you know, they can't get that information. They're afraid of that information, I guess is the way to say it.
Yeah, because the whole understanding has always been brought up on is really it's like a two-part thing, because, you know, living in the Southeast, it's the Bible Belt to talk about God doesn't approve of this, and the other half is, you know, the idea that gender is attached to, like, you were born as a, you know, with these body parts, you are woman, you were born with these body parts, you are man. And, you know, due to recent events, I've I don't know, like, I've been trying to be a bit more open-minded, because the one thing I can say with certainty is, even though I've never understood why people, like, this is such a big deal, because it's kind of, you know, it's been up in the news because of that shooting that happened, where they're talking about that person that there supposedly was trans and went and shot up a church. And then my brain is scattered. What was I going to say?
No, take your time.
And
I will say, according to the news that I've read, just really quickly, according to most recent reporting that I've read, that person wasn't even trans. They've made the claim that they're not trans. They didn't like woke ideology. They were a Nazi who wrote literal slurs on their guns. They said something in their manifesto. They said something to the lines of, like, I brainwashed myself to think I was trans. You know, just sort of kind of.
Yeah, because I remember what I was going to say is that the one thing I've always held is that, like, you can't generalize a crowd, right? So, like, the fact that I see all this stuff now, and like I said, this doesn't really feel like a debate, and more like me trying to understand something I know very little about, because of just kind of like this realization of, like, you know, I think everybody looks at the news and they see what's going on, and we're all just like, I'll be real, I voted for this shit thinking it wasn't going to be this bad. And now we're like, I'm like, oh, this is really bad. I should not have done that. And I feel real stupid, and I have to live with that one. But shoot, I wish my head didn't.
And real quick, I'll give
the fact that
I just want to give, just so people know. This has been reported in the New York Post, the Economic Times, Catholic News Agency. In handwritten notes posted online before the attack, Robin Westman, the shooter, expressed deep internal conflict about their gender identity. Westman wrote that they were, quote, tired of being trans and regretted transitioning, stating they, quote, wished I never brainwashed myself. So for everybody that was like, Jovan lied about that, no, I didn't. I read the news, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately for me, all the news that I've prescribed to, where I'm at, you know, what I'm using currently, doesn't tell that story. And then because of, like, current events, I've been like, maybe they're lying a lot.
Mm.
And, you know, like, unwinding a little bit, because I saw all these generalizations and I wanted to understand why it was such a big deal, you know, because, you know, I saw, you know, it's unrelated to trans men and why the original thing, but the generalization and, like, the very aggressive attacks on them. So I'm like, oh, you can't do that because one person did it. You know, that's not fair. It'd be like saying, like, all Latinos are horrible because you're Latino.
Well, and you can sort of see the hypocrisy that comes out of the right, especially with this. This sort of encapsulates the right's hypocrisy on gun stuff. Like, listen, I'm a staunch leftist. I believe that workers should be armed. I believe that we should own guns. But it's interesting that, like, Donald Trump literally reverted gun policies that were set up so people who were, quote unquote, mentally ill would be on a watch list. You know, if somebody had specific mental illnesses, they would go on a list in case they tried to buy guns. Donald Trump repealed that. Okay, so he said, I don't want this anymore. Which is just sort of interesting for a group of people that claim that It's not a gun issue, it's a mental health issue. And now the right is going, hey, we want to ban trans people from being able to own guns, right? So now they don't even care about their Second Amendment. So it's literally just a big hypocrisy. So
Yeah, like I will say that was voting the way I voted most of my life, right? And like I can say like 13, like what was it? Yeah, like when I started voting, it was like 13 some years ago. It was like a different atmosphere of people. And then Donald Trump happened, and like we all got enamored with him because I thought he was a great populist, amazing person. And but that's off topic from this. I think so. Are all right? Let me understand this. Trans men, in my, I'm gonna know you're gonna say it's like skewed, is a person who was assigned, like when they were born, they were a woman becoming a man, and then trans woman is a man who's now saying that they identify. I'm trying to understand it because for me, it's like if you have a penis, you are a man. If you have a vagina, you are a woman. And there's no debate. If you have these two prerequisites, that is the way. And so, why is it like what is the logic of the determination? Since that obviously isn't the determination.
So the problem is that when we try to set gender on a strictly sexual binary and use some aspect of sex to define gender, what happens is human sexual development is way too varied to do that. So if somebody, this is actually a really good way for me to talk about an argument that I use that I don't get a chance to like talk about outside of debate, and try to make a bit more sense for people. So what's happening is you're making a claim, and this might be a little long-winded, so I apologize, but whatever, there's what we're going to do.
Okay.
You're making a claim about some biological essential trait that is necessary to be a man or a woman. Now, this falls into a few different category errors. One, if we're saying, hey, you need a penis in order to be a man, well, humans aren't the only things with penises. So it's like, okay, well, does everything with a penis count as a man? And as soon as you say, no, it's only humans, then like we're right back to the social thing. Then it becomes, well, so then it's not a biological trait that makes you a man, it's a social trait. And part of that social trait is being a human, being in the group of humans, because we are creatures that socialize. We are able to have gender constructs because we're social creatures. The other aspect that happens is when it comes to just categories in general, in order for categories to be exclusionary in any way, there needs to be something that is necessary, some trait that is necessary to be in that category. So like an example I use a lot is like, let's say I have a road, and let's say I say, hey, only red cars are allowed on my road. No other cars are allowed on my road. It is necessary. So it is a requirement to be a red car to drive on my road. And then let's say a blue car comes through and I let that blue car go. Well, all of a sudden it's not required that red cars drive on my road anymore. So we can take this analogy and put it into gender. So like, let's say someone says, well, hey, you have to have a penis to be a man. And we say, okay, so to drive on this road, the road is being a man. A car or a person must have a penis. But there are things like penile agenesis, which affects men, it affects males, and it makes males, it can have males born without a penis, right? But those males born without a penis, you would still typically call them men, probably. They may still typically identify as men, right? So we would still let them on the road, which means all of a sudden that necessary requirement of penis isn't actually required. So what happens is a lot of people who take the bioessentialist route say trans people have to have this quality that I don't force everybody else to have. So it's just you're just excluding people for no reason. Like you can't make a rule for them that you don't apply to everybody else. So there's always going to be, at least when we look at like human biological sexual development, there are too many variables that go into play. You're never going to find one or even a compilation of necessary biological traits that everybody who fits into the category is going to possess. You can have sufficient traits. You can say, hey, in order to drive on this, if you are a red car, you can drive on this road, not barring other cars, but you're saying, hey, if you're a red car, that's enough. That's enough to drive on this road. But you can't bar anyone else from driving on the road with that. Otherwise, it becomes necessary, and necessary conditions can have no exception. Otherwise, they completely break the necessary condition.
Okay.
If that made sense to you.
So, I mean, I get the analogy that because humans are so varied, it's very hard to classify us so simply based off of a biological attribute. It's like the way I'm hearing that, which definitely makes sense to me. You know, like I said, in most cases, we don't know what's going on, you know, without being extremely intrusive into somebody's life and like I want to see your parts, which is it's just weird. That's weird behavior, anyways.
Yeah, and there's a reason why scientifically, when you ask somebody in like a science field, what is a female or a male, they're going to use the words typically. They're going to say a male is somebody who typically has one of these attributes, right? And because they're always leaving room for the atypical. There's always going to be somebody that meets that category that doesn't have those attributes. So science doesn't really set necessary conditions when it makes categorizations. Instead, the way it works in science is typically you go, hey, there is a list of things that you can possess that gives you access to this category, but you don't need those to get access to the category. It's just if you have them, we view that as sufficient enough to be counted there.
Okay. Yeah, it's, you know, like I said, where I live at, they don't do a great job at all really educating people. I think a lot of people are just generally stupid and don't think for themselves anymore.
I don't disagree with that.
I know very little, and because it's such a big deal in the news, and I'm just like, I've just never cared, and I'm just like, you do your thing over there, just don't mess with me. Like, don't try to force your thing. Because I do know people who are like, they're trying to force that on me, and I'm like, it doesn't sound like they're trying to force it on you. You know, you're making it, you know, like you're doing that to yourself. You know,
well, I do
like
want to say there does need to be some level of forced compliance with things in order to just live in a society in general, right? Like we've kind of forced complied people into racial segregation, right? We had to sort of force that, right? So there always will be some level. You can't have a society where every single person gets to do every single thing they want to do at all times. Society would crumble and collapse immediately. So there's always going to be some level of forced compliance. I think as long as we say like people have these set of rights in a given society, whether those are like civil liberties or what have you, and those rights are not infringed upon, then I think that's a good way to set it.
Because I would say what brings my attention to me wanting to know about this more is, one, I don't like not knowing about stuff better, and I can't trust people around me because I know, like, I understand bias in human beings and stuff. But it's just the fact that you was mentioned earlier, them coming after trans people's rights to own guns, and I'm just like, well, you can't do that, like, you know. And now it's kind of forced me into the because where I live at, there's a ton of people going around, like, you know, beating the drums and be like, yeah, you know. And I'm kind of sitting here like, well, maybe we should. I don't understand this topic, and I don't understand because to me it's just like the guy wants to wear makeup and dresses and he wants to be feminine, but society doesn't allow it, and that's how you know, kind of how we're all been raised around here. So, like, you know, if I wanted to go out and, like, put on a dress, I'd get made fun of or something and get called a whole bunch of words, you know, all of them, honestly, probably.
And truthfully, think about that, too, because it used to be that men wore dresses. Like, that was just the way men dressed, right? All of these things, these social things with gender, changed drastically over time. Pink used to be a color associated with boys. In fact, if you go back far enough, all boys and girls were raised the exact same up until a certain age because babies died early. Like if you go to England and you go to like the Victorian era, they didn't raise little boys to be little boys and little girls to be little girls. They raised everybody gender neutral because they didn't know if their kids were going to die. It's one of the best. It's one of not best fun facts, obviously, but it's so like they're like gender so vehemently is tied to tied to societies and cultures that it's so weird that now we have a big group of people saying no, it's only tied to biology, which is just not the case. We like it's so clearly not. There's a link to biology. You'll never hear me say that gender is a strictly social thing. That's why I call it a neurosocial concept. So like, in my opinion, it's just there's a group of people. And most of the time, when it comes to like a cisgender man's hatred of trans people, they don't want to admit that they think trans people are hot. It's typically what it is. There's this really internalized homophobia that exists within men, to where if anything that could make them perceived in their mind to be gay, they're instantly attacking it. So that's where I think a part of it lies with men. And why cisgender men are so vehemently against trans people, especially trans, because you never see cisgender men talking about trans men the way they talk about trans women. They all grew up watching Jerry Springer and Maury, and they think trans women are trying to trick them. Ridiculous.
Trans men are like, the way I've always understood it would be what I would say is a biological woman, you know, because I never hear anybody talk about that, like, oh, that person wants to play sports with guys, not a problem. But when it's the other way around, it's like we're protecting them.
Yeah, again, there's a reason why trans men still get hate, but there's a reason why the conversation is almost always surrounding trans women. And again, it's a level of trans misogyny, and part of that trans misogyny is that cisgender men find trans women attractive. And then, I mean, just literally go watch any season of Jerry Springer or Maury from like 6 years ago, and what you're gonna see is somebody who's with a partner that they like and are attracted to. They then find out that this person is trans, and they lose their fucking minds. It's because now because you think about it, they were attracted to this person, they were enjoying their relationship, but all of a sudden the fact that they're trans changes everything. It's because now they, in their mind, are perceiving themselves as gay, and they freak out.
Yeah, I will say I've heard of my brother. He traveled overseas, and that effectively happened to him, you know, and he was very upset to find out. He's like, what, you weren't actually a woman by my standards? And got himself in trouble for beating them up overseas, and they wouldn't let him come back because of that for a while. But that was on him for beating somebody up. So, over it. All right, well, I think... It makes sense. It's not entirely biology. It's social constructs, what people think, you know. My brain kind of hurts, I'll be honest with you.
No worries.
Wrap my mind around the concept.
What I think you should do is every Thursday, Takis over on the line, the Transatlantic Call-In Show. They do it's two trans hosts, and they also talk about this. I would also call in there. So that way you're not getting all your information from like my voice. Get the information directly from trans people as well.
I've never, as far as I'm aware, I've never met a trans person. You know what I'm saying? Like
I would definitely try to call. It's called the Transatlantic Call-In Show. It's on the line. It's every for anybody in YouTube chat. If you type !Takis, it should pop up with the link to the show. Or a link to the lines page, and then you can, on Thursdays they have a bunch of like previous recorded ones too. So I really recommend going in and watching that, because it definitely is good to get your information from the people who are dealing with it and living it, not just like me on YouTube, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense, because I think, like I said, it's all because they don't talk about it around here. I have no real grasp of the concept, other than, like, only reason why I really care about it is because people around where I live at are literally beating the drums saying, take away their guns. And I'm like, I thought we were all for guns around here. I thought everybody deserved to have a gun. I thought we love guns so much, we give guns to children. You know,
What
like,
I've noticed about the right is they don't actually care about these things they care about. They just want to be in charge. So every time the right says something along the lines of like, "Hey, we love the Second Amendment," you have to add in, you have to go asterisk for ourselves. Hey, we love freedom of
yeah,
speech, asterisk for ourselves. We love the Second Amendment, asterisk for ourselves. We love anything they like, it's just for them. They don't like when other people that they disagree with have access to this.
yeah, I would agree with that because up until recently, really, really, honestly, until these last 6 months, it hasn't been. I'll be wrong. I'm pretty stupid, and I've been oblivious to it because I was like, oh yeah, and then now it's like, man, do we stand on any solid ground where we believe in something? Are we just suing people for disagreeing? Are we just
Yes.
taking people away guaranteed rights? Because
Donald Trump wants to remove Rosie O'Donnell's citizenship because she's like,
yeah,
I'm moving to Ireland, and remember, America, like legally, you can hold dual citizenship even if you don't live in the country anymore. Just because you get citizenship
yeah.
somewhere else, that doesn't remove your citizenship in the U.S. Donald Trump wants to remove Rosie O'Donnell's citizenship because she doesn't like him and she talks shit about him. You have the president wanting to threaten somebody because of the way they talk. That's
See,
a violation of the
I
First
never
Amendment.
really cared about that. I was more. I'll be real. One of the things that really got me kind of, and I'll leave it at that because it's been a while, and I don't want to take up your time. I don't know how long you do this. I'm sure other people might want to call and actually debate you about something.
Yeah.
But is the whole shoot. Like I said, I just don't pay attention, but it's real hard to ignore it. The whole situation with what's that gentleman's name? Epstein, that's his name. That whole thing, and that was one of the other big reasons. Was like he's going to do the thing. He's going to get all the Democratic pedophiles out of office. He's going to save America from these people. And then in the beginning, it was like, yeah, he's being kind of weird about it. And then, like, I think yesterday I read the news that he's calling it a very hostile act to force a vote, and it's pretty hard to ignore. I know people in my friends and family circles who are like, if there's anything there, the Democrats would have used it. But I sat there and said, but why would he be fighting so hard to hide it then?
Even if
that kind of like put me on I can't trust this guy.
And this will be the last thing that I say about it. But I could understand if Trump is not on the list, right? If it really is the case that Trump did not do anything and he's not sure, but he's sure protecting somebody on that list. Because what would be the reason not to drop everything? The only thing that should be redacted are names of victims and then like anything pertaining to like national security. Everything else should be out in the open when you have something that like this much of public interest. So even if he's not on the list, somebody he's protecting is.
Alrighty. I want to say one more thing. I keep lying. And this is more like shameless plug about the topic. And I don't know how true this is, so don't take my word for it. But I saw a news story that said that they're deliberately removing Republicans out the files and protecting them. And that concerns me because I don't think that's right.
We have confirmed reports that the Department of Justice redacted Trump's name like anywhere it appeared in the documents. So wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, the news like Fox and all the news I used to watch would never talk about it. But then I start clicking onto the other channels and seeing all the other news stations talking about it. And I'm like, these left news stations, they might not be lying if they're all talking about it. And it seems to be a big deal. And the more I looked, the more concerned I became. And I was like, this ain't right. And then the hypocritical behavior kind of, I was like,
yeah, I think everybody should get their news from more than one source.
Yeah, because, all right. Well, thank you for letting me try to learn. And I will call the Transatlantic show.
Okay, great.
And talk to them. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. You have a good rest of your day. Yeah. I'll probably post that one. If you're watching on YouTube, it means I posted that one. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. Please consider liking and subscribing for your daily dose of debates. post new videos daily, so make sure to hit that notification button so you know when a new one drops. Also, shout out to my YouTube members. Membership starts at $2.99 and helps me to continue making content for all of you. Also, shout out to my Tier 4 members, Gib5500, Ovaltine, Sylvia Snow, Bamji, Kelsey K, Kelsey Dooley, Jake Gorshender, Marceline, Matthew Holloway, Kazim, Vampy, and Yemye. Thank you, members, for your support.